Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's exciting webinar hosted by Shimminley. We are so thrilled to have you all here as we delve into the topic of creating work that truly works for you. At Shimminley, we're dedicated to providing valuable insights and resources to help you succeed in your career and personal development. My name is Melissa Joy, and I am a trainer with Shimminley. I have over 25 years experience providing exceptional learning and development programs for emerging leaders. It's my pleasure to be your host today. Our guest speaker is none other than Stephen Morley. He is a serial solopreneur with over 25 years of experience. He is the founders of LifeSkillsThatMatter.com, where he serves as a career and a business coach. His mission is to help you create work that aligns with your values, needs, and abilities. Stephen believes that the nature of work is changing and that managing oneself is becoming increasingly important, whether you work for yourself or someone else. In today's workshop titled How to Make Work Work for You, Stephen will teach you how to design your ideal workday by focusing on what makes you feel motivated and productive. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Worley. Get ready to take some notes and start designing a workday that works for you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was an amazing introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here when Shimminley reached out because they saw that I had a shared passion for teaching life skills. And Chris had asked me, what would you like to teach? And I just immediately said, oh my gosh, this is like the topic I love teaching the most, is like, how do you make work work for you? Because when you really think about it, all of us, many of us across the world, even with everything that we know and how digital's changed how we work, how the pandemic has changed how we work, that we often still think we have to constantly default to somebody else's standards or their structure or their needs. And we kind of always overlook our own. We're always kind of in that perpetual, when we're like a teenager, wanting to be chosen. And we just want to do what that other person wants. They give us a job, they give us the next promotion, they give us the next project, the next opportunity. And I'm here to say that maybe that's not the best approach for a lot of us. It certainly hasn't been for me. I've been working for myself for almost 25 years. I also want to say that I never ever thought I'd ever work for myself. I never thought I would do sales. I never thought I'd be talking about this. But that's the nature of how work is changing so fast right now that what you might be doing 5, 10, 20 years from now might not be invented yet, which is kind of amazing. You know, there's so many different things that you might be doing. Along the way, if you have questions, type them in the chat, raise your hand. You can even do a verbal shout out. I really do like to keep it interactive because that is, you know, things are so fluid, and I'd love to hear what's on all of your minds today. And as Melissa said, if you want to have a note ready to go on your phone, good old-fashioned pen and paper or Word document, take a few notes. I do like to make this more of a workshop and less of a lecture because I really want you coming away to be like, oh, how would I like to start thinking about the work that I want to design? Or what are some things I could start changing about or advocating for myself of how I want to make work for me? So I think I already covered why I've been collaborating with Shimminley. And Melissa, unless you have anything else to add or any follow-up questions.
I'll let you get to it. I'm excited for this talk.
So I would like to ask all of you, if you want to take a moment, you just want to write just down, just for yourself, how would you really, really like to work? What's something you would like to do, but you think it's not possible to work that way? Regardless of your profession, regardless of the industry, regardless of where you are in the world, how would you, if you had your choice, how would you really like to work? And why don't you think it's possible? You just want to take a moment just to write that down for yourself. Give you 30 seconds. For anyone joining us right now, I just asked everyone a question. What's a way that you would really like to work? How would you really like to work, but you feel like it's not possible, that the industry that you're in, or your boss, or wherever you are in the world, you feel like they would never let me do that. You just want to write that down for yourself, and then I'll ask for some shares. So, all right, I'm of a generation, Melissa might remember this, that the teacher would say, pencils down.
Boy, do I.
I don't know if they do that anymore, but would anybody like to share what's a way that, or it could be small, something big, what's a way that you would really like to work, but you feel like it's just not possible? I'm going to check out the
We
chat.
do have some comments in the chat. Would like to work pressure-free. Lots of deadlines to meet.
Pressure-free. Would like to work on time management. Thank you. Ideally, would like to get paid for what I enjoy doing the most. Yes. Self-paced and yet productive. Oh, yes. I love that so much. I mean, who amongst us just doesn't want to start working at a human pace and realize it's enough? And I think sometimes, I'm guessing, I'm just going to throw out there, I'm assuming a lot of folks on this webinar probably tend to be some overachievers. And a lot of times at the end of the day, we have to reward ourselves. I'm sure a lot of us might be like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this, that, and the other thing. And I want to invite you to a ritual just to like review your day and say like, look at all that I did get done. Would like to work honestly and should be productive. Great. Does anybody have any verbal shout outs they would like to do, or anybody else like to share? Okay, these are some really good ones. And I just want to, why I like to ask this question is because I just want to start opening up your imagination, because often back to the way we've been taught about work, we're always worried about what our customers, the employers want. We're trying to fit into their thing so they choose us, right? But we don't negotiate with ourselves first. And that's one thing I want to invite you to today, to start thinking about, what do you want? Before you go out into the world and you're looking for jobs, looking for customers, you want to start with, before you understand what other people want, what do you want? Because that's also going to start guiding the type of work that you create for yourself and the types of jobs for yourself. It's not just about the skill, how much money, the industry, or even what you're passionate about. We're going to talk a lot about the how you want to work, not just the why. Let me see. Sure. Nope. Fortunately, my images did not show up here, but again, we've been taught that how to fit into somebody else's structure. It's almost as a default. We almost assume that we just have to kind of do what is expected of us and what it's told. And to a certain degree, listen, you're being hired into an organization that has a certain types of culture. And that's where we're going to talk about maybe you doing some of that homework first to be understanding what is the culture, what's the values of the organizations, of the people that you want to work with first. So that way, sometimes you get inside these companies, you get inside these organizations, and it sounded great on paper, the interview went well, and then you're 2 weeks in, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be my dream job, and it's my nightmare. Because it just helping yourself understand what is that you want, so you can look for that much sooner before you even apply for a job, or different questions that you might be asking for in an interview. Because I always like to remind people, even in an interview, you're interviewing that company, that manager, those team members, just as much as they're interviewing you. You want to see if it's right for the both of you. And so this is kind of your structure. And I had this woman working on a laptop on a beach that you can't see right now. And I'm somebody who has really enjoyed working at home. I was working at home well before the pandemic, and when everybody freaked out, all of a sudden had to start working at home. I started teaching a lot of people how to do that. And also, it's not for everyone. There's lots and lots of people who do like a structure. But I just want you to be acutely aware of what's the structure you would like to choose. So work that works for you means creating work based on your values, your abilities, and your motivations. This is not necessarily just, a lot of times people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what are you passionate about? Or people are like, you know what? I just want to make a lot of money so I can live this certain type of lifestyle. I'm going to help you go beyond all of that into some deeper questions. A lot of times, most of us, if we're going to be working for the rest of our lives, and to stay motivated, we want to figure out what do we really like to do? What are even the type of tasks that we're doing on a daily basis, the people that we're working with? So that's where I want to kind of get into all of that with you today. So creating work that works for you means creating work based on your values, your abilities, and your motivations. We'll dive into each of those in just a moment. I do have this worksheet. And you know what, Melissa, I'm just going to escape for a second. I'm going to share a link in the chat.
Okay.
Let's get that for everyone. You know what? I don't. I will do a follow-up. I don't have that easily, but I'll do a follow-up. Do you do a follow-up email with everybody?
We can for you, yes.
Okay, great. I'll just zip that worksheet out to you. But in the meantime, we could be, I just want to ask you some of these questions for you to be thinking about. Again, when you're looking for work or you're looking for customers, if you're building a business, I always like to kind of, work is very expansive. There's no one size fits all work anymore. I want you to think about not just what you're passionate about or what makes a lot of money or the skill set that you have that you want to practice, but it's a little bit more about like, how would you like your day to go down? Like a lot of times, guaranteed, if anybody can let me know, I'd love to hear some chat. Has anybody ever in an interview asked you, what makes you feel productive? How would you like to work? I bet they haven't. If they have, that's awesome. I mean, that to me is a sign that that might be a more forward-thinking type of organization, that if that's alignment with your values, you might be wanting to work with them. To me, if I get a lot of, if I ask that question of the employer, of like, this is how I'd like to work, and they say, well, you know what, we don't really allow that here. Well, that's a good, I want to know that back to, because I'm kind of testing the culture of the place of where, we all eat lunch at our desks. I'm like, well, you know what, I need a break in the middle of the day. I like to go eat lunch outside. So I want you to think about some of these questions. People are crucial. That first question, the upper left-hand corner, who do you want to work with? Or do you want to work with anybody at all? Maybe you want to work all on your own all the time. There are people who do want to do that. Sometimes on the other end, you want to work with people all of the time and in person. So these are the things that we often don't think about as we're choosing our careers or thinking about our next work opportunity. What type of people do you want to work with? Like, what are you going to talk about all day? What do they like? Are they more introverted? Are they extroverted? What types of beliefs or shared values do you think that's important for folks that you're working with? And then in the top of the center, when do you want to work? So I have something that I've identified. If you want to write in the chat, I always love asking this question. For your sharpest mental focus and your maximum physical energy, and most of us are probably doing some sort of knowledge work, how many hours a day do you think you have of your best maximum physical energy and your sharpest mental clarity? If you just want to type it in the chat, just throw some numbers out. How many hours a day do you have?
5 to 6.
Okay.
6.
Anybody else?
6. 8.
Yeah. All right, how about one more? Somebody be honest with me. I want an honest one. How many hours a day do you really have to do like your best mental work? All right, I'm going to move on and let you know, by the way, if you've never heard this before, the 8-hour workday was completely made up, pulled out of thin air, wasn't even studied. Because during the Industrial Revolution, they were just working humans like at all hours, kids too. And then somebody said, maybe we should like have 8 hours of rest, 8 hours of work, and then 8 hours of recreation, which really was me just doing all the work you need to do at home. There was no recreation. So it was completely made up. And I think a lot of us are starting to see in the pandemic, and I certainly, when I first started working for myself, I would have my to-do list and the things I need to get done every single day. And I would say, I'm done, and it's only noon. And I'm like, I would feel so guilty, Melissa, and I mean, I would start to think like, what else do I need to do? I got to like work until 5 because that's what I've always done. That's what people said you had to do. So a lot of times what I've learned is we have this made up 8-hour workday. You're getting paid to be there to be seen. Or my poor sister works for a large multinational corporation. They track her mouse movements, make sure she's on 8 hours a day. And work going forward is about being valued on your output, your deliverables. What are you really accomplishing? And if you get it done faster, good for you. You know, as long as it's still of the quality level and it's what you were asked to do. If you get it done more quickly, great for you. That's why I love working for myself. I always like to find different ways to be more effective and to do things more quickly, but not sacrificing quality. So believe it or not, I was a history major. I studied lots of biographies of artists and scientists and philosophers. I've interviewed over 500 entrepreneurs. And from my own personal experience, most people only have 3 to 4 hours a day to do their best mental work. And I want you to keep an eye on that. You know, any of us who are coding and writing, it's unsustainable to be just doing that thing task for 8 to 10 hours a day, day after day, right? You're going to need a break and start paying attention to yourself to start understand when do you have what I call your peak performance period. And generally that is a 3 to 4 hour period, sometime in the morning or sometime in the afternoon or evening for you. I have also met people who have like a 2-hour block in the morning and a 2-hour block in the afternoon and evening. It does get split sometime. But then there's other times where you're feeling a little slower, a little fuzzy, because you need to give your brain a break. Like that's when we are working and we're wasting our time on social media and we're doing all these other types of distractions. I want you to remind yourself that's your brain asking for a break. And you can choose a more productive break, going for a walk, reading, talk to a friend, do a meditation, whatever it is, get away from the screen, don't do the doom scroll on social media. But these are the different things as you start to design your ideal workday about when is your ideal time to do your best mental work. And if you have really important projects, like for me, it's the morning. Like if I like a presentation like this or anything, when I write a blog post, any type of really important work that I'm doing, it's always done in the morning. Right, coding does take a long time. And I'm not saying that that project is not going to end, but you're going to be doing it over time. And you can look for different situations. And that's the thing you have to choose too. There's a lot of tech companies that are really, what do you call it? I would say very intense work environments, and you might enjoy that. But if you don't, you might want to look for other tech companies and coding environments where you would like to work at a more human pace. Again, this is about choices. This isn't about either or. This is about finding out what works for you. We already kind of alluded to this, the second on the left, the second one down. How do you take breaks? When are you taking breaks? What types of breaks are you taking? And be aware of doing that. So that way you don't burn out, that you don't start eventually not liking your work or you're unhappy with your job. Or you make a rash decision and just decide to throw in the towel and up and quit and have a dramatic send-off on YouTube. You don't want to do that. Where are you working? The bottom question down there. Do you feel like you want to be working in multiple locations throughout the day? Do you want to work in an office all the time? Do you want to work in an office and at home? Do you like working in coffee shops or hotel lobbies? Do you want to work outside? Do you want your occupation to be involved with always working outside instead of always being inside? So start thinking about those types of choices. And the upper right-hand corner, you know, how are you working? How are you doing the work that you're doing? You know, sometimes for me, if I know I have a deadline and I have to get something done, but I'm not feeling it, I like to play a trick on my brain. And I don't want to be sitting at a table or a desk. I want to be on my comfy couch with a blanket and a cup of tea. And I want to feel like I'm having I'm relaxing, and it's going to be like an arts and craft kind of project for me. And then all of a sudden, just by kind of playing that trick on my mindset, I feel so much more excited about getting this project done. It starts feeling less like work. And not to be trite, like one of my questions or red flag things to be looking out for that I recommend to everyone. If you're working on something and all of a sudden you're like, this is not fun, I am not enjoying this right now, take a moment to stop and just honor that feeling and ask yourself, what is something I could change in this moment or over the long term to make it more enjoyable, to make it more fun? I mean, work is not fun all the time. It's just, there's all different aspects of work that are going to need to be done by the nature of your profession or your role that you're going to have to get done. But how can you make it a little bit more enjoyable? And how can you change it? And finally, what is if your ideal workday, what do you want to be working on? A lot of times we think of the profession, we think of the project, we think of the big stuff. But as we know, we're in the weeds, and somebody was just sharing how coding takes a long time. Coding is a task that you're doing over and over and over again. Writing is a task that I do over and over again. Melissa's also a trainer, so she's interacting and coaching people over and over again. So think about that occupation. And a lot of times I also recommend asking people who are doing the occupation or the profession that you think you want to do, and ask them, what's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? What are you doing every day? What are the 3 common tasks that you're doing to do your job, your role, to build your business, whatever kind of work you're doing? What are you doing every single day? And if you're like, oh my gosh, I definitely don't want to do that every single day, yikes, over and over again, then maybe you should think about, what is the task? What's the repetitive tasks or tasks that you're going to be doing every single day that you're going to be improving upon? So I'm going to stop there for a second. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts about how you would like to, or I'd like to know, what's one change you would like to make that you think you can make over the next couple of weeks to start crafting your ideal workday? What's one change you think you can make? And often that change involves a conversation with your colleagues, your team members, your boss. And a lot of times we assume that they're not going to let us do it, but they're never going to know if you don't ask. And that's something I'm always advocating to people. Just ask. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no. And try to understand, let them know that by doing that, it's going to help you feel more effective, more productive. Explain where you're coming from and why you want to do this. You're not just goofing off. You're not trying to get out of something. You just want to be more effective. And as crazy as it sounds, or maybe it's something very unconventional, that it makes you feel more productive. So if you want to type in the chat, what's one thing you think you would like to change, or you'd like to ask someone to start moving toward your ideal workday? Or maybe if you're already living your ideal workday, I'd love to hear what that looks like. Nobody wants to share, huh? I'm going to give you a few minutes on that one.
Well,
Come
I
on.
can tell you one area I would have to focus on looking at your ideal workday is, how do you take breaks? I don't know about anyone else, but a lot of times, especially if I'm doing work for multiple clients, I tend to feel guilty if I don't go nonstop, if that makes sense.
Oh, I've been there, Melissa. And a lot of times, if I can offer one strategy that I do with in that situation, if I'm not feeling it and I feel like to get something done, sometimes if it's canon, I know I'm not bothering my client, I might shoot them a text or send them an email. I actually just did that this morning. I said, hey, I'm working on some projects. How urgently do you need this? And a lot of times, like, oh, I don't need this until the end of the week or next week. I'm like, oh, okay, phew. Because I'm kind of testing my assumptions. And again, it's a lot of times a big part of designing your ideal workday is collaborating with other humans and just being honest with their needs. And I bet if you start speaking up about what you want, I bet they have needs too. They also want to have a conversation about it. And even sometimes when you're just working with mutual colleagues, you don't even have to talk to your managers. There's different things that you can actually talk to each other about how you would like to design your ideal workday so it works for each other. It's called just being human, right?
Oh, I love the comment, Luz. I hope I said your name right, Martinez. I combine online work done from home with house chores, cooking or doing laundry are my brain breaks. Those are great brain breaks to have, because your home still has to be maintained.
I love that too. A lot of people, now it's written about, you'll see this in a lot of blog posts on social media, especially management, saying, oh, when people work from home, they're just going to get distracted. They're just going to do house chores all the time. And I recently, I did an experiment. I actually took a job for like 30 days. I was consulting, and this client offered me an amazing opportunity. I only lasted 30 days because just staying in an office all day long, because I'm very productive. I want to throw a load of laundry in, and it kind of gives me a break. Sometimes when I'm doing these other manual labor tasks, it's allowing my brain to process things. There's another thing. I call it the back office brain. And the more I learn about how our brain works, there's actually a lot of parts of our brain that are working outside of our conscious mind, especially if I'm feeling really stuck on something. I say to myself, all right, I'm going to send this to my back office brain. I'll check in my inbox tomorrow morning and see what it comes up with. And I tell you, a good chunk of the time, it's like a solid next step or a way I haven't been looking at something. It gives me a sense of clarity because sometimes overthinking is not the best thing. Sometimes we just need to put it down, put it away, and move on to something else. So I agree. Anand, change I want. Agree to bypass chores that are done as a ritual but benefits none. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Another word I'd like to use is busy work. I bet every single one of you, if you looked at your day right now, how you're doing at work or your to-do list, I want you to challenge yourself. I'm like, why am I doing this? Who is it for? Is this busy work or is this impactful work? I bet if you looked at all of your tasks, there's going to be, you can divide them into those two different buckets. What's busy work and what's impactful? What could be delegated? What could be automated? I walk through people through that exercise a lot of times to look at all of your tasks to say, what could be delegated? What could be automated? What could be flat out eliminated? Like you've been working so much, you didn't stop to reflect to say like, do I even need to be doing this anymore? Or to ask your boss, your manager, your colleagues. And then finally, what's left over is what you should be focused on because that's what's really going to move everything forward. Anybody else want to share what's a change you would like to make for your ideal workday, or what's a part of your workday that you feel is really ideal that maybe is a little unconventional? I'm going to share one more, Melissa. At different times of the day, when I feel like, oh, I want a distraction, but I need to settle my brain down, I actually just sit down and do a quick little meditation. I almost feel like, especially after working for 3 or 4 hours, my brain is like a snow globe, and I need to take it and I need to put it down on my desk. I need to walk away from it for like 15, 20 minutes, let it all just settle down again, let my energy settle down. And then I can come back to it and have greater clarity. I think so often the way we've been taught about work is like more, faster, better, right? And sometimes slower or less might be the better strategy in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me move on here for our last half hour. Anybody else wants to share? Yes, Lewis, good for meditation. And also, I just want to say, like, sometimes I know when I say the word meditation, it's a loaded term, and everybody's like, I can't meditate. I've tried it. It doesn't work. I invite you to just try any other activity that gets your mind off of work for a second, or if you're feeling stuck. So meditation for you, like the very first time I ever felt like I experienced meditation was downhill skiing, believe it or not. That was the first time I would, at the end of the run, I was like, I wasn't thinking about anything else about just being safe, getting down this hill right now. And so whatever that is for you, it doesn't have to be the formal Zen posture, saying a mantra or anything like that, but whatever's just getting your mind off in a productive way away from a screen. All right. I just want to, now we kind of got into the granular there. I just want to kind of go the 30,000-foot view of really thinking about designing your work, kind of having that conversation with yourself, negotiating with yourself before you go out into the world. You're looking for a job, a career path, or even starting a business. And let's talk about your values. So this is how I define your values. It's your personal code to determine what type of work is the most meaningful to you. I mean, think about of the infinite different types of work that exist in this world. Why are you thinking about the type of work that you want to do, or why are you doing what it is you want to do? What's the core reason? Why did you choose that? I mean, really, why? Which work tasks are the most satisfying for you? Remember, again, you've chosen this profession, but there's going to be these like probably 3 to 4 tasks that you're going to be doing over and over and over again. Do you see yourself doing that for a while? Do you like to do it? You want to get better at those things? And how do you choose to conduct your work overall in the way that we were just discussing your ideal workday? Kind of what's the environment, the people, the sounds, how much time you're spending in front of a screen? What are your work values? And don't worry, and when it comes to your values, I really want to impress upon you. Do not worry about what other people think, right? I proudly, when I say sometimes, I would say probably once a week, my meditation turns into a nap. because my body just needs it. I can only imagine if I was in a job interview and say, by the way, once a week, I'm going to need a 30-minute nap. Is that okay with you? And if that company's like, no, that's terrible. How could you? Well, that is not the right fit for me because I know what makes me productive. And if that they're creating a culture that they frown upon something like that, that's fine. Okay. I want to go find a company that is honoring not everything, but at least open. That's the other thing. You're not going to get everything that you want. But first, you have to 100% understand what it is that you really do want before you can start talking about it with other people. And remember, you're going to be working with other humans. You're not going to get everything that you want. This is a collaboration. It's a negotiation. You have to make compromises. But if anything, if you start being really honest about what makes you feel productive or how you like to work or what makes you really excited, you might be inspiring other people to do the same thing, to start thinking about how they want to work. And then we're all more excited about that work we're doing, more excited, more joyful about it. Does anybody have any questions about your values? And because this is a big topic, a lot of times when I use the word value, I don't want you to go to the internet to look up 400 words of values and say, like, we all want to be honest and truthful and, be punctual. Sure. I want you to know, like, when I'm talking about value, what's really important to you? What are must-haves? Like, I want to manage myself. I want to be the boss of me. That is a value. Like, I'm happy to work with other people, but do not tell me how to work. Like, that is so core to how I want to work. I'm consulting with the local city that I'm working with, and they wanted to hire me as an employee. And I told the mayor, that is not going to happen. But this is a situation. This is how I could structure. This is how we could do it. And she said, yes. She's like, I know you're good at what you want to do. And if this is how you work and this is how we're going to get the most out of you, fine. That's okay. Anybody have any questions about values?
None in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
What about when we alter our values because we keep seeing scenarios where people or environments don't think it's practical? For example, being student-centric with every decision that we take.
Oh, this is a great question. And well, I have
Great.
some thoughts. Unless Melissa, do you want to have? I would like multiple perspectives. Do you have any thoughts?
We'll share our thoughts. You can go first.
I think there's two ways I would take this. I like the way that you're thinking. Sometimes when we feel challenged, our values can be challenged, and values can change over time because there's always the environments, everything's always changing, right? So I think I often recommend, at least on some sort of regular basis, once a year, once a month, once a week, you should be checking in with yourself and your values. That's the first thing I often recommend to people. You should have a meeting with yourself every week. Like, take yourself out for a cup of coffee and be like, what's going well this week? What's not going well? How do I want to change next week going forward? And you should be checking in with your values. Are they lining up? Are they still serving you? Do you want to change? So I think that one way I'd like to take this is to say that, yes, sometimes you might want to check in to say, is it time to change your values? But on the other hand, are you working in a work environment that's starting to take you so far away from your values that it's making you miserable? And maybe it's time to rethink where you are, and maybe you need a new environment that is celebrating your core values. Melissa, what's
Yes, I like that. And what I'd like to say, especially when you get to the point where you feel like that you're the one that has to adapt, try sharing your values with those that are around you and explain the why. So many times people don't understand the why. However, when you take an opportunity to explain, you know what, the reason why I'm student-centric is because I want to yield this particular result, and this is my comfort zone. This is how I can get it. How can you support me in doing that? So trying to solicit the rapport and explain the why behind it and get others to appreciate and understand your value, even if they don't demonstrate their value the same way. I think that in the vast world of education and corporate America, everyone is almost trying to be cookie cutter with how they're operating, and you do not want to lose your authentic self by just giving in and saying, well, this is the way everyone else is going to do it. I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, I like that. I think what you're also reinforcing for me is I always like to be respectful of everybody else's values, right? At the same token, I think we never take the moment to be like, oh, I haven't communicated my values to them. That's why they're resisting. Oh, I haven't even done that step. Sometimes it's got to slow it down to like check in and like, oh, this is where I'm coming from. It actually has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and making it a conversation. Sometimes we just need to slow things down.
Mm-hmm.
I was cracking up when I said micromanaging is a no-no for me. That is why I only lasted 30 days at that previous job. Like the client was great, but when it turned into an employer, that person turned into a nightmare for me. And because I just really then saw all their micromanaging tendencies on display. And that does not work for me. All right, let's move on to your motivations. So this is where motivations are a little bit different than values. It's your desire to do work. Like you got out of bed and you're gonna go do work. What's like motivating you to go do that? Even when it's challenging, even when you're a little bit tired or there's some challenges at work that you still wanna do it. And also the circumstances that make you feel really energized, uplifted to do your work, to fulfill your unmet needs. So I really want you to be clear on that too. We all have deep down desires and motivation. And sometimes these motivations are very positive and sometimes they're kind of unhelpful or unproductive. You know, we're kind of doing things from maybe an unhelpful place. For example, we all have money issues. Newsflash, like whether you think you do or not, we all do have some part of our relationship with money and finances that could be improved. I do. And I made a lot of different decisions in my career based on some of my money issues of always a fear that I was never going to have enough money to pay all my bills. And, you know, after 20 years in, I was like, I've been okay. Like I'm doing this, you know? And so is this really a motivation that's helping me anymore? So I don't know how Melissa feels, but like I felt like, it's like a holiday to me to come onto a webinar. This is so motivating to like to hear all of you, to talk to all of you about this topic, because I think as much as it is starting to happen out there, more people are talking about it here on podcasts, social media, it's still not discussed enough, kind of in this granular way of really breaking it down to slow things down, to be like, what is it you really want? You know, my father would always say, you only come this way once, you know? So you might as well make the best of it. And this is not about being selfish. This is about knowing yourself and then communicating it to other people. Being selfish is when you totally dismiss the needs of other people and only advocate for your own. That's being selfish. You know, again, we're talking about understanding what you want so you can collaborate and understand the needs of others. And then how can you create a work circumstance that works for everyone and for you and your colleagues?
And self-awareness is really critical, as you know. I mean, the more self-aware you are, the more that you go through activities such as this, you're more honest with yourself, right? And then you know how to articulate it and verbalize it to others so that you can get what you need from them to motivate you.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even know if you caught that, everybody, but I just jumped out of my skin and I came back into what Melissa said. Self-awareness is the most important skill. Melissa, you and I are going to be fast friends.
Yes, we are.
We have that value because the first iteration of Life Skills That Matter, my company that I started, was doing a solopreneur accelerator. And as I was teaching people how to start their business, I ended up having to constantly teach them basic life skills all the time in order to get the most out of the business skills that I was teaching them. And the three most important life skills are connection, dealing with other humans and yourself, curiosity, you know, just constantly wanting to learn and lean into things, because especially the world is changing so fast, you're never going to stop learning. And finally, self-awareness, most important life skill. Like, yes, that is the skill that helps you know yourself for yourself, outside of what other people think, what algorithms telling you who you are, or AI is, right? You get to know yourself, is self-awareness. And that is an ongoing lifelong practice. Like you're never going to be 100% amazing at self-awareness because it's hard to like look outside yourself and be real honest with yourself. And that's what I think Melissa and I really want to help you do here today is like, even when you're on your own, be honest with yourself. Nobody else is around, you know.
Mhm.
This is not, don't shame yourself, don't judge yourself, but like challenge yourself sometimes, you know, especially about those values. Like, do they need to be changed? Am I going in the right direction? Every once in a while, check in with yourself. Um, we had some in the chat here about motivation. On motivation, knowledge and learning a new skill that is non-trivial. Yeah, yeah. I think I don't know you, but from that comment, I'm like, I'm going to make an assumption. You're like me, and you don't enjoy small talk very much. I like to just dive in and like, let's get on it. Um, Loose. A motivation would be when I feel and see that my students are getting to where I'm guiding them, seeing their progression really motivates me. Building honest relations with students drives me to keep teaching. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And Luz, I don't know if it ever is unmotivating for you when you feel like you can't reach that student. At least it is for me sometimes. I can see the potential in this person. I know I can't change them. They have to find the change within themselves. I can give them all the guideposts and the exercises and the encouragement. But sometimes that's also tough. Yeah, it's tough. All right, let's move on to your abilities. So these are two buckets. These are your natural talents, like you're just good at stuff. And that means like the stuff that in your life people are always asking you for help with, or they tell you stories when they want to tell a story about you. It always happens to be about something that you're really good at. And it's something that you're so good at, you can't imagine that it would be hard for anybody else to do. That's natural talent. And we all have it. And the other part of your abilities are your acquired skills, stuff that, you know, in schools, formal education, on the job training, all that sort of thing, acquired skills that you're going to learn that weren't natural. Like for me, writing was not a natural talent. That was an acquired skill, something I personally had to practice. And sometimes they can be a natural skill, but sometimes they can be an acquired skill. And these are natural talents and acquired skills that solve problems and create value so that way you can earn a living. So a lot of times there's this debate about skills versus passion in terms of choosing your profession. I will only share my perspective, and I'd love to hear Melissa's perspective, anybody else who wants to share their perspective. You know, I personally, I want to be passionate and excited about, you know, my work. But at the same token, I want to get paid. And maybe sometimes there's things that I'm really excited about that the world just doesn't want to pay me. And I kind of get it. So you also have to kind of really focus on the skills and the things that are needed in the world and look for ways to infuse your passion into your skills. And that's the other thing about really designing your work that works for you is just because there is a way to write a blog post or coding or even accounting for that reason. You don't want to get too creative accounting because you still want to be on the up and up when it comes to accounting. But what are some alternative ways that you would like to be able to do it? Or I've met people who are saying, I'm really passionate about the environment, but I'm just an accountant. I'm like, well, there's plenty of environmental organizations that you could be an accountant or a bookkeeper or a chief financial officer for. They're like, wow, I kind of never thought of that. So sometimes it's like doing a skill mashup of like, what am I passionate about? Make a list. And what are all my skills? Make a list and start drawing lines between the two. And you'll start seeing opportunities that you didn't realize before, just because you can take one of your passions and one of your skills and mash them together. And that can be a whole new opportunity that you could start reaching out to, you know, kind of a jumping off point, you know, kind of asking people about doing a Google search. So Melissa, what do you think about kind of passion versus skills in terms of earning a living? What as a kind of a motivation to think about designing your career?
It is definitely something to think about because the more passion you bring to the table, the higher results you're going to yield when you're executing, right? So it really is important to make sure that you do understand your natural talents and not just how it can become revenue. So a lot of people that I coach, they'll come to me and say, well, I have this passion and, you know, I'm a wonderful writer and I can write all these things on without an AI, you know, and I can create these experiences, but I can't find a job doing that. People don't think about the things that they can do at volunteer, nonprofit organization to build up that experience and expertise so that you can make that into a full-time job, so that you can begin to make money doing what you love. So it really is, and it fuels you. I mean, the more you enjoy doing something, the more successful you're going to be at it because you're waking up even through those challenges. Your motivator is always whispering to you, you've got this, you need this, you're going to make an impact. I think so many times we focus on the end result being monetary and fulfilling us financially, that we forget about the value added that we're bringing to the people piece. And we have to marry those two together.
I couldn't agree more, Melissa. Even as a personal example, I recently restarted. I paused my business for 2 years, restarted it, and I have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Saturday morning. I call it a reflection reminder to encourage people to stop and reflect, check in with themselves, and I give them different things to think about. And I just write, Melissa. I'm not selling anything. And then I had 3 people asking me if they could hire me as a coach. So I think that's an example of like, sometimes if I over focus to be like, how am I going to get clients? The energy, the way you write, it comes off in a certain way. But this was much more natural. I'm like, yeah, I want to keep helping people. I'm going to keep writing this newsletter. And then people do come to you. I often tell people, like, the more you try to be somebody that you're not, the more energy that takes, the more miserable you're going to be. Your body and your brain are eventually going to be like, this is unsustainable. I need
Yes.
you to be you. And the more that you're yourself, it takes a lot less energy to be yourself. But at the same time, it's kind of you stand out more. People really see you because they're like, wow, that person is just very clear. I like what they're about. I can see them. And I think too many of us almost feel like, with still kind of a lot of work is kind of traditional for me, believe it or not, even in the
Yeah.
tech space, even in the digital space, people often use language that they would say they feel like they're acting at work. They feel like they're one person at work and a different person in their personal life, or they feel like they have this persona that they zip up and they put on in the morning, then they zip it off and they take it off at night. And I kind of personally feel like that stinks to me. You know what I mean? Because
It
I
does.
remember those days. It's so exhausting to have to like live a double life like that.
Well, you just said it. It takes away the energy from what you need to be focusing on to get the results that you want because you're too worried about what everyone else is thinking or I call it putting your ambassador on and not operating to your true self. And that can be extremely draining.
And yeah, and if you're in that situation, sometimes you don't even realize that you're being pulled out of your value alignment or out of alignment.
Hmm.
But your body is always going to start telling you. You're going to get tired. You're going to put on weight. You're going to get sick more often. You're going to get bags under your eyes. Your body's like, hello, this isn't working anymore. I need you to like check in with yourself and like get yourself out of this situation. All right. I just want to finish off with the process very quickly, how to find work that works for you. Because kind of one of my new pet peeves is how we are still in 2024 teaching people how to find work. I'm not a fan of resumes. I do not like the interview process. I'm not an advocate of applying for jobs on job listings, although you apply to enough of them, eventually you'll get through on some. But I really want to, so much has come to me into my life and a lot of the people that I worked with because we kind of went back to more human-centric approaches. For example, when you're applying for those job listings on something like Indeed, a human doesn't even look at it anymore. An algorithm does. That's how we're being commoditized as a human so much. That is really just saddens me. So these are 2 things I really want you to think about. Going back to values, I really want you to understand, check in with yourself. As hard as you are making that resume perfect, and you're doing all the things the internet tell you to make your resume perfect and to be acceptable from an AI program, I want you to spend the same amount of time working on your values. Like, what are you really curious about working on? If I was talking to you right now, I want to hear what you're really fired up about. I don't want to see some resume. I want to hear what you're fired up about. What's a skill that you want to improve? Even if it's challenging, even if it's hard, you really want to get better at it. What type of people do you want to work with? Again, getting it back to that ideal workday. Like, I really want you to, like, what are some characteristics, attributes? Like, describe a couple of the people that you'd be like, that would be a cool person to be working with. Because the more you start kind of writing that down and putting it in your mind, you're going to start seeing it. You're going to start looking for it. It is out there. And that's what I'm kind of asking you to take off this traditional filter and put in a filter that is a little bit more aligned with you, your values. So you can start seeing, oh, wow. I remember going to that Humanly webinar. And there's this guy who said, like, if I start like focusing on my values and writing it down and saying what I was curious about, what I want to improve on, who I want to work with, that it would actually start showing up. It will. All right. Second piece of advice, outreach. This is the thing everybody needs to do, but doesn't do. Everybody loves getting a job because they're excited about the new opportunity. They're going to make money again, but they're also secretly excited about, whew, I don't have to look for a job anymore. I don't have to do outreach. I don't have to put myself out there. Well, I'll tell you, somebody's been working for himself for almost 25 years. Every day I'm putting myself out there. And I'm so grateful that I am, because opportunity is always coming to me. When you lose your job, if you don't see it coming, you get laid off, you are fired, or it's such a toxic situation that you just have to up and quit, then a lot of people are then left out, like, oh my gosh, I can't find a job, because you have no network. You haven't been keeping up with people. You haven't been reaching out and maintaining relationships. Even if you have a job you love, you should still have a goal of trying to meet a couple people a month to be building those relationships. And a couple ways, if you're like, I am so uncomfortable with reaching out to people, just a couple of things to get you going. Number one, reach out to the people you already know. Look through your phone, look through your email, look through all your social media channels. And I want you to start picking out people that you're like, oh yeah, I haven't checked in with them in a while. I'd like to see how they're doing. Or yeah, I'd like to know more about their profession, or what is it they're doing. So be curious about that. So sorry, I wrote that twice. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's reach out to people you already know. And the second bucket is reach out to people you'd like to know, even if it's a famous person. Now, it used to be, there was a time in social media, it used to be easier to like reach out to famous people. It's gotten a lot harder, I'll admit. But you never know. It's worth a shot. It's worth a try. You might have a hero out there that you just let them know why you admire them, what you've learned from them. And a lot of times that's authentic. They really appreciate it. Don't ask them for anything. Just let them know why you've been so inspired by them. Or a type of person. Maybe there's a profession you want to get into and you want to learn more about it. You know, find some of those folks that work in that industry and just reach out to them on LinkedIn, email, or through the people that you already know. Let them know these are people you'd like to meet, and get some introductions. And finally, just be curious. Give to receive. Like, don't ask for stuff. Don't ask for a job. Don't do that, please. Especially in the first interaction. Just be a human. You're just interested in them for being them. Back to what Melissa was saying. It's don't have that end game in mind. You know, I can't tell you how many times the more I just give, people just come to me like, I'm a sales trainer too. I had a sales training business. Not only did I thought I would never work for myself. I never thought I would do sales. And then I was like, oh, it's just talking to people and understanding their challenges and their problems and trying to help them. Oh, I can do that. And then a lot of times it's about education. You know, if you do want to work for yourself, you're starting a business, or you're in an occupation that you have to get customers, educate people. You don't have to sell people, attract them. Like, be passionate about your topic, educate them. And finally, share your work. And I'm not talking just about your resume. No matter what your profession is, find a way to get it in front of people. Go to conferences, have a blog, have a video, some sort of video channel, YouTube, TikTok. Keep finding ways to keep getting better at your work. If you're in between jobs, go volunteer using your skills. So when you're going for a job interview, they don't think that you've just been sitting around just looking for jobs and applying to Indeed all the time, wondering like, why isn't anybody responding to me? They like to know that you want to keep getting better at your skills. Showcase your work portfolio. You know, a lot of times this was always in the creative artistic fields about having a portfolio of your work. We need a portfolio of your work for every industry now, even if you're just a researcher or if you're a coder. Show your body of work. And again, find ways to use your skills to keep solving problems, keep getting better at those skills, even if you're in between jobs, or if you're in a work opportunity right now that's not letting you really practice your skills, like find something on the side to keep practicing those skills. I just want to close out back to the weekly reflection reminder that I was talking about. You can sign up for free at lifeskillsthatmatter.com/reflection. They go out every Saturday morning Eastern time. And again, it's just a reminder to like have that meeting with yourself. And I just give you some different things. I have a question or a challenge or something I've learned for you to think about if you can't think about something for yourself. So I will come off screen. I'll stop sharing my slides for a second. We have a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions or any takeaways. And I always love feedback. All feedback is good feedback. If you want to send that to Shimley, please let them know about what could have been better. If you have any questions, again, feel free to send me an email. Sometimes when you sleep on it, you know, different questions pop into your head. I'd love to hear that. Melissa?
Excellent. Thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you to Stephen for sharing his insights on how to make work work for you. Stephen, your expertise and your practical advice that you provided us with and the valuable tools to design how our workdays should flow and to align our work and our values and our needs and our abilities was great. As we wrap up today's session, I want to take a moment to highlight Shimley's professional development program. It is designed specifically for facilitators in life skills education. Just as Stephen emphasized the importance of creating work that works for you, our program aims to equip facilitators with the skills and knowledge to empower others to achieve the same. Our professional development program offers a comprehensive training, essentials life skill education, making sure that facilitators are well prepared to guide their students towards personal and professional success. Whether you're looking to enhance your facilitation techniques or expand your curriculum, our program provides the resources and support that you need. If you're interested in learning more about our PDP program, please visit our website, reach out to us directly. We're here to help you make a meaningful impact on the lives of your students. Again, thank you so much. We've had people from all over the globe. Thank you for taking this time to grow with us. And again, Stephen, thank you so much. We truly enjoyed having you today.
Thank you. You were just a super fun co-host to have. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great evening, afternoon, or morning.